Hi guys, welcome to the lesson 3 for React.js tutorial series.
Today we are going to see about the topic JSX.
JSX is one of the greatest things about React. In the last lesson, we have covered how to create React element with the React.createElement. We have used JavaScript to create React elements instead of working with HTML. Now we will create a fairly complex DOM with React.createElement. Let A equal to React.createElement div comma null. I'm passing the properties as null. I am nesting another element inside this div. So I'm creating React.createElement h1 comma null comma. I'm giving the value channel to this h1. I am creating a line break. I am creating anchor tag and I am nesting that also inside this div. I am rendering this React element inside the React container ID. So for that I am using React DOM.render. I am giving the element which we have created A and document get element by ID and I am giving React container. Now instead of referring it to script.js, deleting this and I'm giving type equal to text JavaScript. Now this is done. I'm making little format changes. Now I'm running this code. If you see, like I got channel and involve innovation. Inside I got a line break. Inspect this. In the elements, I can able to see h1 line break and a anchor tag got nested inside this div element. But for this small piece of code, this is the only code which I have wrote. You see here, I am copying this code, copy element. We are creating a div tag and we are nesting h1 line break and a anchor tag inside this div. For that, we are writing this much big code. It seems very difficult. When we need to create a very complex DOM elements, this becomes practically difficult to create this much of React.create elements, and it is difficult for a traditional UI developer because they are already familiar with the XML structure of creating the HTML elements. And this feels like clumsy and you are writing too much code to accomplish this small HTML element. React developers also feel the same, that this code is very clumsy and we are writing too much to accomplish this very small task. So the React developers went with JSX. So what is this JSX is, rather than creating elements with the React.createElement, we can create React elements with this HTML based syntax. Now we'll comment this piece of code and we will write the same functionality using JSX. This is the JSX syntax. This looks similar to the regular HTML structure which UI developers are already familiar with. Now save this. Now we will execute this and see what is happening. When I try to execute the code again, we will get this error because this is a JSX code. The JSX code need to be transpiled to JavaScript and there are n number of transpilers available. In this tutorial, we are using Babel. Babel is one of the React recommended transpiler. For that, I am using the CDN link of Babel min.js. Formatting it. And then if we try to execute now, we will get the same error again because we need to change the type text/JavaScript to text/Babel. Now we will try to execute the same. We got the same output like channel and involve in innovation. And if you see the React tab, we can able to see this like div is one of the React element and h1 is one of the React element and br and a and div is one of the React element. So we have accomplished this task easily with the help of JSX. So what this JSX code will be transpiled to, if you are interested to know about that, we will transpile this code into JavaScript with the online Babel transpiler. For that, go to the link which I have gave in the description and we will copy this piece of code. So if you see this is the transpiled code. So this div h1 line break and anchor tag are converted to JavaScript code by this Babel transpiler. So this is the output which we will get after this JSX gets transpiled to JavaScript. So we no need to write this complex and clumsy React.createElement. Rather than we can go ahead with the JSX which looks exactly similar to the HTML code which the UI developers are already familiar. And if you see, JSX is a JavaScript extension that provides syntactic sugar for function calls and object construction. Particularly for React.createElement, it may look like a template engine or HTML, but it is not. JSX produces React element while allowing you to harness the full power of JavaScript. As mentioned in the lesson 1, JSX is not required for React, but it is highly recommended for making the maintenance people life easy. So think about, you are creating a component using React.createElement. If the project complexity or the DOM complexity increases, you need to write a big code. So it will be resulting in boilerplate codes. Whereas if you write the same code using JSX, it looks clean and it is also easy for the maintenance. Now we will see whether JSX is the only solution for this. Yeah, might be, but there is another simple way in which we can reduce this React.createElement. So how we can do that? We will delete this JSX for now and we will uncomment this React.createElement. Now I am creating a new variable which stores let ex equal to React.createElement, and I am replacing ex in the place where I have used React.createElement. So I am replacing here, Now if I save this and rerun the code, I will get the same output, although it doesn't look as simple as JSX, but it reduces some of the React.createElement and thus makes the coding little bit easier rather than creating all the elements with React.createElement. JSX is one of the preferred way for creating complex HTML DOM objects. This is our JSX. If you see this code, you will get a feel like it looks like HTML, but don't get misled by this. One thing to note is JSX is not as merciful as HTML. So why I am saying this JSX is not as merciful as HTML? Now we will see the 4 common mistakes which we will do in HTML, but still the HTML will get rendered perfectly. But if you do the same mistakes in JSX, it will result in error. So we will see one by one. JSX requires you to have a closing slash either in the closing tag or it should be a self-closing tag. So if you see this BR, I am declaring this line break as a self-closing tag. So what happens if I give this slash here? So we will run the same code again. We will see whether this is getting rendered or not. If you see this, we won't get rendered. So if we go to console, we can able to clearly see that here we will get error. But this will work in HTML but not in JSX. JSX requires the closing tag. If it doesn't have a closing tag, the tag should be self-closing. This also will work perfectly fine. But if you give the slash here, unlike HTML, this won't work fine. So we need to always give our slash as a self-closing tag, or the tag should have a closing tag. In HTML, we can give class equal to heading. This is perfectly fine in HTML and you can declare a style for this. Here I am giving style, in this heading, background color gray. The class is already a keyword in ES6, so we should not give this as class. Instead of class, we should give this as class name, because this class is a JavaScript keyword for creating ES6 class. Refresh now. Now we can able to see this H3's element background is gray. So I'm giving inspect. You see here React. Here the class name is heading, and if you see this element here, go. If you see here, this class name got rendered into class. Now third thing is, we will create an input tag. Delete input disabled equal to false. This is a self-closing tag. Executing this. This disabled is false, but if you see here, this is disabled. What we are expecting is this should be editable. Since we gave false, we are expecting this should be editable, but if you see here, this is giving us a disabled text box. Why it is happening is, if you see the code, I'm going and seeing the code here, input, and it is disabled. So why it is happening? In JavaScript, a string is always true. This false is converted as a string, so which is true in a JavaScript syntax. JavaScript has only 6 false values. What are those 6 false values? False is one of the false value, 0 is one of the false value, and empty string is false value, and null is a false value, and undefined is a false value, and not a number is a false value. These are the only false value available in JavaScript. All other things, for example, if I am giving a string, this will be automatically taken as a true value. Instead of giving this, I am giving an empty string and I am executing this. You see this is no more disabled because this empty string is converted to a false value. So what is the correct approach when we are writing this kind of syntax in JSX is we need to give false inside the curly braces. Now if you see here, this is editable. That means like if you go and see here, this input is not a disabled field. If you want to make this as a disabled, you can give true here.
The last and the final important thing is
I am having one field here and I am creating h3 here. I am writing involve in innovation, my channel name, and I am executing this. If you see this console, we will get an error. So what is this error is adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in a enclosing tag. So what this error corresponds to is if you are writing these two tags, this JSX expects that these two tags should be enclosed inside a tag. So for that I am enclosing these two tags inside a div. Now this error will go off. If you write the same code in HTML, this will work fine. These are the 4 common mistakes which we will do in JSX.
Thanks for watching this video. For more technical videos, subscribe to this channel involved in innovation. Please leave your feedback and queries in the comment section.